Welcome to the Real Estate Pro Radio Show. I'm your host, Amber Arms, and we have with us today Traci Marra from the Greater Philadelphia area.
All right, Traci. Well, let's just hop right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's Traci the person?
I am an outdoor person. I love the beach and kayaking. I have a built-in pool, so I spend a lot of time in my yard in the warmer months, and just generally enjoy pretty much anything that includes the outdoors. And been married 32 years, and so my spouse and my friends are my family. I don't have children, but keep busy with friends and family, and just really enjoy any type of outdoor sport or gathering.
That's wonderful. And, I don't know how things are over in your area of the state, but it's finally starting to warm up over here. We're starting to see some warmer weather, some, less snow on the ground, so to speak. So that's really exciting for, outside possibilities here.
Yes, we've just had a few warm days off and on in the last week or two that have been nice. I think we even had a 70-degree day the other day. So really looking forward to spring kicking in for numerous reasons.
Absolutely. It'll be super exciting for sure. And so you mentioned you've been married a long time, 32 years. That's not insignificant. How'd you meet?
I'm sorry?
How'd you meet?
Part I missed. We met at my 22nd birthday. Was someone that came along with someone else to a birthday party.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And so, how did you get into real estate?
I had a friend that right out of high school had gone to work for Century 21 and then ultimately had opened his own office and was doing quite well. And we had gotten talking about the changes that were happening within the township because I had reached out to him about potentially selling my own house. And then kind of, conversation started from there.
That's wonderful. And, you said it kind of started there. What would you say would be like the catalyst? What was like your decision for becoming an actual agent? What made you decide to do that?
Well, in November of 2003, I've been in IT for 18 years, working for a financial institution, and I had gotten downsized 3 months after losing my mother, and it was a tough time. So I took a couple months to kind of help my father, who had some health issues. Mom was his caregiver, so it took a couple months to kind of get him settled into his new life. And unfortunately, as I got back to looking for jobs, 9/11 happened, which displaced so many people out of New York that the entire IT job structure changed, not for the better. So I had been working as a contractor doing IT work for University of Pennsylvania Hospital, and what had supposedly was going to be a week assignment had turned into 4 months, and the hope was that it was going to become the full-time job I had waited for. And the day before Thanksgiving in 2003, I was told that assignment was over. And I had grown so tired of, I was full-time with a company for 18 years, so the contracting was a much more difficult environment, and I just made up my mind that I was going to reach back out to my friend and pull the trigger on getting involved in real estate full-time.
Well, that's wonderful. And, 2003, that's not an insignificant amount of time. That's almost 20 years now. With your experience, what would you say that the future of real estate looks like here?
I think there's definitely a shift coming. I think what we're seeing right now, the supply and demand, the tale will be told in the next month or so, I think, as we typically will see buyers increase in the market as they always do in spring, and to see whether or not the inventory is going to rise to meet the occasion. Right now we're at historically low inventory, which is just creating a frenzy around every listing, multiple offers above asking price, sometimes substantially. So I think that, in the next month or so here, we're going to learn how quickly this shift's going to happen, economically. All the markers are there for a recession and things that should start to slow the market. So I think that the best answer, I guess, is that until we see how this next month or two pans out, the future of this market is somewhat uncertain. I don't think we can maintain the way things have been going much longer.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I've been hearing that from a number of agents across the state. It's interesting to see how things have changed over the last year or so for the real estate market. What would you say has been like one of the biggest changes that have happened over the last 2 or 3 years?
Honestly, we've been relatively consistent over the last 2 or 3 years. I think the thing that we're struggling with now is everyone seems to be in somewhat of a holding pattern. Sellers who are considering selling their homes are looking and realizing there's just little to no inventory for them to choose from, and therefore they're not listing their homes. So it's this conundrum that doesn't seem to be resolving itself just yet. I do have some sellers certainly that have the opportunity to go out and look for homes before selling their home. And that allows for them to take a little bit more time, but it's just perpetuating this situation of lack of supply. So we are hopeful to see that change in the coming weeks.
Yeah, it really sounds like it's been a really reinforcing cycle as far as the market's been concerned over the last couple of years. It'll be interesting to see as we transition away from that where the market's going to go. Now that things are starting to open up again.
Right. It defies logic right now when you see, economically we're struggling across the country with much higher prices in so many areas that does not, the market that we're in right now does kind of not support that theory. So it's interesting to see which direction we go.
Absolutely. And, I know that it's really hard to, predict even, a couple months into the future, much less further than that. But let's just say, hypothetically, let's just throw some ideas out there. What do you think we're looking at for, 2023 perhaps, or even 2024?
Well, the Federal Reserve has kind of come out and made it very clear that they intend to continue to raise interest rates. And I think that that's going to drive business in several ways. I think that certainly any interest rate increase costs buyers money, so it could in fact drive more buyers into the market now in an attempt to lock down a 30-year mortgage before those interest rate increases take hold. And then also maybe the thought from the seller's perspective is that as those increases take hold, that you're cutting into a buyer's budget, and ultimately that's going to affect the pricing of houses for sellers as well. So the hope there is that announcement from the Federal Reserve is something that drives sellers to say, look, if I'm going to get top dollar for my house, I really need to get into the market now. And if we could see a market flood of listings and buyers at the same time, I think that that market could hold strong and really be the backbone that supports the country at a time when the economy is so difficult.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, 100%. And we've talked a little bit about where we think it's going, but a lot of things have changed since 2003, not just in one industry, but just in general across the world. How would you say things have changed since you first got into the industry?
Oh God, they've changed 200%. When I first got into the industry in our county here where I work, people still relied very heavily on print ads and the newspaper. When the newspaper would come out on Sunday with the real estate insert, they would pull that and our phones would ring off the hook. So you'd be in the office, you'd be collecting leads and showing houses and really kept things moving. And people were much more reliant on a realtor. They needed to come to your office to sit down and look through. The MLS was new online and it didn't have pictures and it didn't have any of the information really that it has now. So they had to call realtors, which made it much easier to capture leads and build a relationship with people. Now, the way the technology has taken over in the last 10 years is unbelievable. There is virtually no print ads at this point, and people capturing leads from Facebook ads or different technologies and applications that are available to them. So it's made transitioning, I guess for me what is helpful is that because I have an IT background, I have a tendency to be able to adjust to the system changes a little easier than some of the realtors that don't have that background. But it is full-on technology business at this stage of the game for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure that that kind of changes how you view the industry and how it's changed a little bit compared to some of the other agents I've talked to. What would you say one of the biggest changes in technology that's happened? You mentioned the MLS. Is that one of them?
It is. I mean, it's gone from something that was not very interactive, was simply a place where you could, put the address, put some information about it, and then it evolved. First, you were able to put one picture so they recognized the exterior. Then they went where you could put 6 pictures, and now you were able to see some main interior shots, to the fully interactive maps that we have now, where I can literally go to a map and draw a circle and pull every house that's in that circle. So it has, it has made the job much easier in terms of the legwork that it takes to find out what's out there for your client. I think it's muddied the waters and made it a little bit more difficult for those of us who build our relationships more hands-on. And I think that the relationships you build with people, this is the biggest purchase or sale they'll ever make in their lives for the most part. And being able to connect with people and them to feel comfortable and trusted with you, I think that face-to-face is crucial for me. So I do miss some of that. I miss the more personalized side of the business.
Yeah, I really feel like that real estate in general as an industry is very much a people person. It's a people business. No matter what portion of the industry you're in, you're a real estate agent, you're a home inspector, you're a contractor. It really feels like that you have to have a good relationship with people to succeed in this industry. So it really seems like it's kind of unique in that aspect. I feel like a lot of industries it has a little bit of both, but real estate in particular is just very much a people business.
I agree.
We've talked about some of the things on the real estate agent side of things and how things have changed. How would you say things have changed for the buyers or the sellers? Getting involved in selling and buying their house. How would you say that things have changed for them?
Well, I think what has been an advantage for the buyers, or that they perceive as an advantage, is this ability to find their own homes. With the advent of IDX being connected to our multiple listing service, which basically allows buyers to see real time. If I've gone in, I create a listing, I set it to active, they're able to see it within minutes. That used to not be true. It used to take, sometimes 24 to 48 hours for those early Realtor.com type sites to download listings and or update them. And buyers still were a little bit reliant on you for that accurate information. Now, more often than not, you find your buyer calling you saying, hey, I found this home. I'd like to take a look at it, which is difficult because it does take a facet of your business out of the picture and has a buyer feeling as though they're taking care of themselves. So I think it's been helpful for them to be able to look at those things and be able to educate themselves. They're definitely smarter in the market than they were 10 or 15 years ago because of their exposure to all of that information. From sellers' perspective, I think the sellers have benefited also just this widespread technology that allows for advertising to take off, across an area is from a simple Facebook post. That has benefited them in not only in quick sales in the market we're in today, but certainly has helped to drive their prices up.
Yeah, and that definitely makes a lot of sense, especially from the buyer and seller side. Would you say that sometimes that can also be, as much of a hurt as much as it can be a benefit for people coming into your office?
Absolutely. I think, again, the perception that buyers have, there's so much that cannot be learned. My first process I do with every buyer that I meet is for them to come in and sit and talk with me. Oftentimes it's an hour to 2 hours where we just spend talking over the entire process because, for instance, you can go out to a Zillow or many of the other sites and pull in information that's just not accurate. not up to date. For instance, they're showing you what your monthly payment's going to be based on inaccurate taxes. So that perception, I think, that oftentimes can set buyers up for disappointment. Certainly in a market we're in now where we're looking always at multiple offers and above asking price is making it very difficult for buyers right now to be in this constant disappointment of, I think I found this house I really like, and now everybody else in the county likes it as well. And, you're writing offer after offer after offer for buyers. So I think that, for one, is a negative to them. From the seller's perspective, right now in the market we're in, it's very difficult for me to find any negative for a seller. They're just writing their own tickets and making demands that are being met at every step of the way here. So I wish I had a better answer for that. But
This episode is brought to you by We Center of Chester Springs, Pennsylvania. With access to over 200 carriers, We is ready to service all of your insurance needs for home, auto, business, life, and more. Simply call 484-207-6640. Again, that's 484-207-6640, or visit WeInsureCenter.com. Get your free quote today.
Absolutely, no problem. And what would you say is, when people come into your office, what do you think is a common misconception that most people might have about the market and how it works?
Well, I would say, not necessarily to the market, I would say the number one misconception is the misunderstanding about commission and how commission is dispersed. I think everyone thinks, I list this house for 6% and realtors are just, out for the money and we just take our 6% and run. And they don't realize how that structure works. And I often have a discussion with both my buyers and sellers because I think it's an important part of the process to understand, first, how and where it's negotiated and how the commission never affects your ability to negotiate a good deal for your buyer. But that, there is a split there. If I take 6%, I give 3% to a buyer's agent, and my agency takes a portion of my 3% until I reach a certain level in each year. So I think that would be the number one misconception of how and how often and how much we're paid. And then I think from a market perspective, the misconception right now is, I think as we start to shift, what will happen to us is sellers will still try to hang on to, I'm able to write my own ticket, while buyers are being educated otherwise. And we start to see that, push-pull where deals fall apart left and right because of those lack of negotiation. So hopeful to see that this new market in these next few months, we're hoping to see maybe it become a little bit more balanced. It's still going to be a seller's market, I believe, throughout this spring, but I think that we're going to see something a little bit more balanced for both.
That would be fantastic, I think, for most people involved. The market is so low on inventory right now. Coming back to that equilibrium, I think it's just healthier for everyone in general. Talking to some of the people when they're, going out and trying to buy a house right now, it sounds like it's absolutely insane, especially depending on, where you're trying to get a home in. Certain areas and certain neighborhoods are just almost impossible to get, an offer to the end.
Well, I think one of the hardest things for them is the constant feeling of disappointment, and it becomes two things, is that I'm normally showing, I try not to show more than 6 houses at a time to a buyer because I don't believe you can, by the time you're done your tour, you don't remember what kitchen went with what basement if you're looking at 10 and 15 houses in a day. So we try to stick to 4 or 5 or 6 houses. I have not had that many houses to show one buyer since I can't remember, maybe 2-3 years. So you're finding yourself, you're out almost every day of the week doing one showing here and one showing there because that's all there is. So keeping a buyer engaged in the process and having them feel this is not a great time to be a buyer. But some folks still need to buy homes, whether it's the best time for them or not. So I think that constant frustration of being outbidded is wearing on them. So I think a more balanced market will be very beneficial to our spring.
Yeah, that would definitely be good, I think, for the market and just people in general. It's definitely not sustainable the way that it's set up right now, and it would definitely be good to see things, transition into a bit of a healthier state. And, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but what would you say is the biggest challenge your clients are facing in today's market?
It has to be inventory. The buyers, you can see the frustration in them where, as an agent, my job, I feel, is strictly service and the contractual obligations. That's my area of expertise. I'd never walk into a home and have you feel like I'm trying to sell it to you. That's not my job. It's to show it to you, to point out the pluses and the minuses, and give you all the accurate market information for this property. But I'm never going to be one saying, oh, that's not a problem for you. This is really the house for you. You can ignore that little, it's up to you to decide. And then I try to negotiate the best deal. But the problem we're having right now is they find a home. You have the conversation with them. They really love this home. You sit down. You write the offer. People write the best offer they can write, and there will always be times where you're just going to be outmatched by someone who either maybe has cash that they can make up the difference if a property didn't appraise because they paid so much over asking. You really find that they think it's the home, doesn't work out for them, so now you're playing devil's advocate about maybe that wasn't the home for you or it would have worked out. And when you're doing that 4 and 5 times with a buyer, it becomes very frustrating for them. And I've had more than my share of buyers who have said, we're just going to take a break right now because we're just tired of the disappointment that goes along with these failed opportunities. And I've been in the business long enough that I know how to write competitive offers, but no one who is pre-approved for $250,000 wants to look at $200,000 houses just so they can overbid to keep up with the competition. So that, without a doubt, is just this gigantic challenge for buyers to have such a tremendous lack of inventory.
Yeah, it sounds like that sounds like it's probably one of the biggest ones that I've been seeing as well. I don't think I really mentioned it, but I do insurance as my, primary occupation. It's what I do as my day job. And, talking to some of the clients coming in trying to get insurance, like, I'm trying to buy this house and it can't be over, such and such price, otherwise my loan won't be approved. And, it's really tough for some people just trying to budget things out and trying to push things to the absolute maximum to try and, make a deal, make it to the finish line. It's definitely an interesting experience, definitely different than how it was, a couple of years ago. Hopefully we can transition back into a healthier state for everybody. It's just anybody in that industry is just trying to make things work as much as they can, but it's really tough with the industry being what it is and the inventory being what it is.
Yeah, most of us, I feel like most agents prefer a seller's market with a reasonable balance. The buyer's markets are tough because as a listing agent, it puts you in a situation that you're constantly sitting on listings and you're talking to your client every week and you're going through price reductions and the difficult frustration on the level of the sellers that say, geez, my neighbor sold his house 6 months ago at $10,000 more than I'm asking and I can't even get showings. So that buyer's market is terrible. So I think most of us enjoy a seller's market, but something much more balanced. And I'm hoping to see in these next coming weeks that we're really going to start to see inventory build and start to see that balance shift a little bit to mid-market, which would be kind of nice for all of us right now, get our buyers into homes.
100%. And, with all of these, challenges that people are facing today, I think that it's probably more important now than ever to find, a good real estate agent. What would you say makes, a really great real estate agent stand apart from, everybody else that's, options that they can pick from?
I personally, if I'm coming to your home to talk to you about selling your house or I've had you in for a buyer consultation, what I feel sets me apart personally is that the level of service is that, we all follow a general format. We use the multiple listing. When you list a house, you go through certain steps. We all kind of follow the same procedures. But But I think the number one complaint amongst people is that I don't hear from my agent. They don't return my calls. They don't pick up their phone. I have always been and consider myself to be the most accessible agent in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, because I don't even have an office phone. I strictly have my cell phone. I have my direct voicemail. I pick up my phone every time it rings, even when I don't recognize a number, because I work in an area where people could be calling me about real estate from any phone number. So I think the level of customer service that you provide, because that's in fact what this job is. It's not just that my knowledge of contractual real estate that's important. It's my ability to service my customers. It's my clients need to feel like they are the only one. Because when they're making the biggest purchase of their life, the stress builds when phone calls aren't returned, and the concerns start to grow when they're not being communicated with properly. So for me, it's always going to be, when I sit with my listings, I always tell them, you're never going to see me on the list of the person who sells the most real estate in the county, because you will always deal directly with me. I have a team of people that take care of my business on the back end, but I will always be the person that you talk to and that you see up front, because it's my business. So I think that level of service that people deserve is something that we don't see in a lot of businesses anymore, where people with technology, people have stepped away from the kinder, gentler way of doing business. And I still like to run my business old school with, face-to-face meetings and giving people the confidence to know that when they reach out to you, that you will answer and solve their problems.
That's wonderful. And I think that that's a really good, message to have for people, and a really good message, just to have as a team as well. There's definitely been a bit of a transition, to, let's sell as many as we can. And sometimes you got to step back and, check, quality over quantity. And,
right. And I tell people
I think
all
it's
the
really
time
beautiful.
We are all different. We're all in this business for different reasons. There are people who work part-time. There are people who don't need the money and just enjoy this industry. So not everyone is out to be a mogul and worried about their top production numbers. I'm always in the top 10% of the 260 agents in my office. So I work hard and I do well, but my goal is not to have the most clients, it's to have the happiest clients.
That's beautiful, especially in the people industry, just to prioritize, your clients over top of the, the bottom line and all of that. And,
that is the truth. It is about people, not about houses.
It is. A lot of people focus on the houses, but honestly, it's such a people business. You gotta go back to the roots of what the industry is.
Absolutely.
And, if people wanted to get in touch with you and, essentially reach out and potentially have you as their agent, how would you say is the best way for them to contact you?
I always feel, I always provide my email, but I still say that my cell phone number is my priority. You can call and talk to me anytime, day or night. If texting is more comfortable for you, I try to communicate with my clients in whatever is the most convenient way for them. But my cell phone is always on, and that would be the number one way to contact me.
That's wonderful. And for our viewers, could you actually, list that out real quick?
Sure, yeah. My cell phone number is 610-653-6870.
Wonderful. And thank you so much, Traci. I really appreciate you coming on to the show today and, giving your perspective on the industry and how things are going. It's been really a pleasure speaking with you, and I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Amber. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and thank you so much for coming on today.
You as well, and you take care.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.